Welcome to From Small Towns to Global Stages, a think tank media podcast. Hosted by Dru Daniels, this show explores the journey from local beginnings to global opportunities in the world of events, blending real stories, industry insight, and the human side of building a career. Start small, show up big. Here we go.
Hello, and welcome back to From Small Towns to Global Stages. This is Drew, and as always, I'm your host. And today we have Mrs. Kareena Gibson with us. All right, Kareena, I'm so excited that you're here today. We're gonna have
Yeah,
so
me
much fun. We're
too.
gonna learn. Yeah, we're gonna learn so much. It's gonna be great. So after looking at your LinkedIn, you're currently an event manager at the American Association of Service Coordinators, which I believe you've been there for about 9 years now. But looking through that, it seems that you've been in industry for about 30 years and you're still growing strong, which is
Yep.
lovely. I love that. So if you could give us a brief background on how you became part of the event industry, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. I went to college. Actually, my degree was in international studies and German. I had a double major. And when I came out of college, I was applying in a lot of places that would fit, that my skill set would align with. And a management company that was an event management company in the small town. I'm not sure if everyone knows, Drew and I are from the same small town originally.
Yeah.
And there is a management company there that was at the time, and this was in the mid 90s, was taking US based companies to international trade shows around the globe. And they were looking for people to support that team. So they hired me because of my language skills at the time, I don't have those anymore. I can't speak German like I once could, but at the time I could, and someone who was comfortable in international spaces. And unfortunately or fortunately, between when I began and when that first trade show was happening, there were some staffing changes. They needed me to fill in somewhere else. And it was my first lesson in event planning was to say yes to the scary stuff, because I jumped from what I originally was planning to do to manage some small events that were local. And it opened up an entire career that I didn't know even existed up till that point. And the rest, as they say, is history. 30 years later, I'm still managing events. So that's how I got started.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny how you took that international space and transitioned it into planning events, which,
Yeah.
from what I've learned as of now, a lot of people within your generation kind of fell into the industry rather than going into it directly.
Yeah, there were
So,
not, I'm very envious of your generation because there are programs where you can really learn the trade prior to getting out there. For most event managers and event personnel that I've worked with in the last 30 years, it was oh gosh, I didn't realize this was even a thing. And it was kind of a happenstance falling into it. And then you either love it or you don't. I think,
okay.
you can test it now as a student and as you're learning.
Yeah.
I just discovered, oh, this is a really good fit for me. And I feel very fortunate that it turned out that way, but it was not the plan. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool though that you ended up there and it's like been
Yeah.
your niche ever since. I really
Yeah.
like that. So I now want to sort of narrow in on what your day to day looks like working at the association where you work now. So if you
Yeah.
could give us a little play by play.
Sure. And I know that later we'll talk a little bit about the differences and how the management company experience was with working with an direct association.
Mhm.
Originally, this association was a client of the management company. So that's how I first got introduced. I was still working for the management company, and the management company was slowly winding down. And this this association decided to manage their events independently. And they approached me at the time that I was going to be losing that gig and asked if I would work directly for them. So I'm an independent contractor for them. I'm not a full-time employee. They don't have a need for a full-time event person, but I end up getting paid and like a full-time person because my work ebbs and flows.
Okay.
So my work
Mhm.
went from the management company with being tons and tons of events throughout the year to now I have this one major event I focus on. So throughout the year, my days change dramatically. Right now I'm in a post-conference mode. My event was in late August. So by the end of September, all of that is done. And my days are really prepping, budgeting, kind of laying the groundwork for my 2026 event. So right now it's very manageable. The summer is not so manageable because those days I sometimes am sitting down at my desk, which I'm lucky to be able to work from home, but that means my office is always open. So that can be a little tricky. But some days during the peak event days, I am, at my desk at 6:15 and I am there until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. With small breaks in between. But right now it's very manageable and I can go do cool things like apple picking with the family and stuff because we're in the slower season. Yeah. So, I get up, I do emails, I'm on Teams with the rest of the team. I am connected as if I'm a full-time employee. And then I do a lot of outreach to the partners on the ground at the city where we're going to be. We're a national organization, so we move around the country with our conference. So I'm kind of building my team of who I'm going to be working with throughout the year. And that starts now, 9 to 10 months in advance. I start laying the groundwork now.
Yeah, that's awesome though. And that's nice though that it ebbs and flows. So then it's like it helps you combat that burnout, I'm sure, of the
For
busy
sure.
season versus the non-busy season.
Yeah.
So transition to my next question, you kind of talked about it a little bit about you're more of an independent contractor now. But working with that nonprofit versus, I guess, kind of working for a profit company, what's been the biggest difference?
Yeah, I would say the management company that I worked for managed a lot of associations. Some of those were nonprofit associations. So I was familiar with this type of work before, but we also had spinoff public events that were for-profit events that, because if you're in the events world and you see that there's a hole and there are people willing to come to something, especially if you work for a management company, they're going to fill that hole with another event. So I do have experience and worked for many years with public facing events that you might see at a fairgrounds, like you go buy a ticket at a golf show or a boat show kind of thing.
Yeah.
My events were always in the creative spaces because the trade shows I was working with were also in the creative spaces. So the nonprofit events, for my experience, is that you've got to build in membership base. So you've got attendees that want to come, and a lot of times need to come because of their CEU requirements, their continuing education that they need for the profession. So that's kind of built in. Whereas in a for-profit event where you're selling tickets, you've got to build your audience to come to that. And so it's like doing pop-up retail shops, which is a very different experience, stressful in different ways. But for educational nonprofit conferences, they end up being kind of a Christmas tree in my experience. So the whole base of the tree is the education. That's why people are coming. But usually in an association, you've got other departments, membership departments that want to give out awards. You've got sometimes a very active board. You've got committees. So all of those want to hang something on that tree to make the conference and the educational conference the premier thing for their activity that they do all year long. It's the one time they get face-to-face time with their members. So as the events person, you have to keep the goal in mind that people are coming for education. So you've got competing goals that are happening, and it can kind of weigh that Christmas tree down a little bit. And it also just means more planning. You've got banquets, awards. You've got to think about tracking your CEUs. You've got to move people in and out of educational spaces throughout a 3 to 4 day time period. And you might have some exhibits that are part of that, but a lot of times the education is your main focus. Where for-profit events, it is getting people in the door, making sure your exhibitors are happy, thinking about parking and safety and local permits and paying the local taxes and fire marshals, and those kinds of things. So which is why I like the events world, because really every event is its own unique thing. There are some basics that you've got to get down, but every single one is so unique. So your days, you don't get bored.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you kind of mentioned there's been some differences, obviously, between both. And events, I feel, as a somewhat of a transferable skill once you are well in to the industry and you understand what's going on. It's
Yeah,
project
I agree.
management.
Mhm.
So what's been the biggest difficulty transitioning from from those trade shows and those for-profit events to those educational conferences that are non-for-profit?
Yeah, I think that I'm not sure if they're difficulties, but it's just like getting your mind around, okay, this is a new animal and we've got different goals,
Mhm.
and success looks different in those two spaces. So being flexible and listening to, asking the questions early on. If you're hired in, or if you're given a new client, if you work for a management company, or what's the goal? What looks like success? And ask those questions early on, because they can be very different. When I was in the trade show world, I needed to, and that's where I started. I did a lot of trade shows early on. I was really serving my exhibitors. I needed to make sure they left feeling like they had a successful event, that I provided them with all the tools and information they needed to make it successful and not have to think about anything but doing business once they got there. And I needed nobody to fall and slip anywhere. I needed my signage to look to be actual tools, because that can be a challenge. Sometimes your marketing person wants to be real fancy with your signs, and then nobody can read them. And the whole point of a sign, nobody knows where they're going. So you've got to think about large groups of people. You have to think about things like, the docks and shipping and drayage. Is it a union city or not? Are exhibitors allowed to move their own materials in, or do you need to pay somebody a union wage for an 8-hour minimum? Those kinds of things. And if you mess up a few of those, which any event, you're going to have some mess ups, because you bring big groups of people together. It's a lot of factors, and you're hoping that your percentages are leaning towards success, and you're not looking for perfection. But then in an education space, which is what I'm doing now, people need to get those CEUs. You need to have effective presenters and speakers. You need to have a tracking system that works. And if the Wi-Fi starts to glitch, how does that impact people's CEUs? They're just different. Usually in an education space, you've got some committees or some board members who have big opinions, but they're going to come and go, and you're going to be there year after year. And it's like a new administration. You've got to be ready for, okay, this is what our focus is now. We're doing something different. Where in trade shows, it's all about business, and you don't have as many voices, but it's usually a bigger animal because you've got more people coming in. So I'm not sure if I had big difficulties from one to the other, but it was just being ready to change hats, and being like, okay, I'm not worried as much about big groups of people. It's about the small impact that everyone's getting, and they're learning, and they left. And, but also in education spaces, they're in hotels, and it's always a little bit nicer, but people sit in one spot. And so you've got things like everybody gets cold in a big giant room, and you can't change the temperature very quickly. That does not come up in a trade show, because people are moving around. So, they're just, and these sound small and silly, but as the event person, you're the walking complaint department, right? So you get all of anything that's not going well, it comes to you. And you have to just remind yourself that if they don't come, nobody seeks you out to say, oh my gosh, that room was perfect temperature. I didn't have any trouble scanning in. Your signs were amazing. Like, no one says that. So when you don't hear from somebody, it means things are going well. And the few people that you hear from, learning experiences, they need a place to vent, and you take it with a grain of salt. So, yeah.
I like that you called it the walking complaint department. I think that was great.
Yeah. You need broad shoulders and thick skin. And not going to lie, I started when I was 23. I managed my first event at 23. And I cried in my hotel room a couple times, because people can be kind of mean. Then now, many years later, I realize usually that's somebody's most uncomfortable working day of their year. They're not used to working at events. You're used to being in and out of working event spaces. They're not at their office. They're out of their comfort zone. So every little thing feels irritating to them, and you're the only place that can drop all of those complaints. So I usually just let them vent, listen to them, and say, here are 2 solutions I can give you right now. Which one works better for you? And then move on. And that usually works. Still, I'd rather people lead with kindness, but they don't always.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that actually segued really well into what I wanted to talk about next, which was more about the emotional aspect of planning events and dealing with the people that complain, but then also realizing like you have your own life outside
Yeah.
of the world of
Yeah.
events. So, how did you initially balance those demands during your time
I
at
started this literally just when I was engaged, and I'm getting ready to celebrate my 30th anniversary. So, like, before I had
Congrats?
kids and everything. So, my kids only know a world where their mom was an event manager. So, I think it's really all about balance, thinking about, you know, on the home front, just expectations, telling your kids, we did things like countdown chains, um, they kind of, my event was part of their um, back and forth. It was just part of their daily lives. For my own peace of mind, it's all about trying to plan for being as prepared as I can for the things that are in my control. Because once you get there, or the closer you get to the event, a lot of things are out of your control, and you can't control all of that. So, usually people that are in the event space, my experience has been they are planners, they are kind of type A, they like a list, they like to plan ahead. So doing that almost above and beyond, depending on your personality. I just had to kind of find my cheat codes. I plan way in advance. I start with what, usually there's a spec book or a punch list or something. I always call mine the spell out, where it has every event and piece of information that the event needs. I start with the shell of that and I work backwards. And throughout the conference planning time, I'm constantly adding things to it so that if someone in a meeting or offhand, because right now people can send me a Teams message and be like, hey, it'd be great if we had 3 speakers on the stage instead of 2. They're not going to remember that until day of, but they're expecting that you're going to remember that. So put it somewhere so you can double check later, have tools that work for you. And then a lot of it is like remembering to breathe, take a break, on site, manage your time, eat protein. Don't go out every night with the whole crew because you will be exhausted. You're usually the first one out. Last day of the event, if it works great and everybody wants to go out for a great dinner and celebrate, wonderful. But think about how you're going to feel that next morning when your alarm goes off before 5 a.m. because it will. And then, just throughout my career, I used to do 3 to 6 major events a year when I worked at the management company. I look back now and I think, how in the heck did I do it? I don't know how I did it because it was a lot. And I have had to at times say, oh, hold up. Especially once I became an independent contractor, I would say, okay, I need you to, I've got 3 events this summer. Take one away. Somebody else has to do one of these, and be my own advocates before the burnout happened. Because early on, I did allow myself to get burned out a few times where you go, and
right.
Almost every long-term event person I know has, a story of, oh, I had to take myself to the ER one night because I got dehydrated at an event. That happened to me. Oops, I I almost passed out behind the stage during the silent auction because, again, I went from West Coast to East Coast, red eye, so I could do 2 events back to back. You have to take breaks. You have to give yourself a break. And it's fun and it's exciting, and you see places around the country and you stay at nice hotels sometimes, depending on your group. So all of it seems great, but it will catch up to you if you don't manage your time and remind yourself, okay, I need breaks too. And I need to, and I would say a huge thing is to, utilize your team, whether that's your internal team or the support team you have hired, because a lot of times you need partners, AV partners, registration partners, temporary staffing partners. If your staff isn't large enough to actually manage your entire event, lean into those. You've hired them for a reason. And, I think that skill gets honed more and more as you get
Mhm.
more seasoned.
Yeah.
But, I think thinking about that early on is key.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I really like that's good for me to know, at least, and I'm sure those that are tuned in as well, because it's definitely difficult, especially as a young professional trying to push towards something and get where you want to get. And
Yeah.
you're wanting to say yes to all these opportunities because you don't want to regret not doing the
Sure.
opportunity or taking advantage of it. And so that's good to know your limits and like be self-aware and understand where you need to stop and
Yeah.
where you need to say it's okay.
Yeah.
So, I have one final question before we conclude today.
Mhm.
What is the biggest piece of advice that you would give a young or seasoned professional in our industry?
I would say the biggest piece of advice I would give is kind of dovetails on what you were just talking about is if you really think about it, your goal is not to be a hero, it's to be effective. And so
Okay.
managing, you still want to show up, you want to say yes, especially early on, you want to say yes to those opportunities. But if you're striving for perfection and you are saying yes when you know your plate's already pretty full, your chances of dropping something off that plate get higher and higher. So, ask for help, delegate if you've got a team, don't be that hero, be effective. Because the other thing to keep in mind, which this was hard for me to remember early on, is you want to say yes to everything because it feels like if I don't, they won't think that I can handle it. But leaders in the organization delegate. And so if they see that you can effectively delegate, then you look like a leader. So you don't delegate everything. It needs to be appropriate. You need to be doing your job. But if you have hired and you have other people on the team, delegate because eventually that turns into them tapping you for a higher position to take on more responsibility. Also, the other thing is invest in good shoes because your feet are going to feel it and you got to have good shoes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So then
Yeah.
do you have any recommendations for good shoes?
Yeah. I would say during setup days, wear some Rothy's. Those are my go-to. And
Yeah.
early on, everyone's going to wear what they're going to wear because some events you've got a uniform you need to wear. Everybody's wearing a show shirt or a association shirt or whatever. If they allow you to wear comfortable shoes, do it. Do it.
Okay.
Take nice shoes, but then take shoes to change into as soon as the last attendee goes. If you need to wear a heel, don't wear your highest heel. If I could go back to those first 5 years, I wore a high heel every day and I was doing those trade shows and it was all concrete. Oh, I killed my feet. And
Oh.
you only get one pair and my
Right.
feet are shot now. But it was fun. I had a lot of fun, a lot of memories. So I'm excited for you that you're
Awesome.
just beginning this journey
Yeah.
because it's there's a lot of interesting people out there. Here's I know we're wrapping up. The other thing
You're
is
fine.
this last thing. It's a very small world out there in the events world. It's so don't burn your bridges. I don't think you would, but you run into people in other capacities throughout your events career. They may work at one hotel property in Austin and then you go to Denver for a site visit and all of a sudden they're there. So if you have a bad experience somewhere and you need to complain or you need to make things right for your client, do it with grace, do it kindly because you're probably going to run into that person somewhere down the line and you want them to think of you as a good partner that leads with grace. So yeah, that's happened to me multiple times. I was really glad that I was kind
Yeah.
the last time I saw them. So yeah.
Right. That's such a good piece of advice too,
Yeah.
because frustration is real. And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
can be hard
And things
sometimes to
happen.
navigate.
You bring big groups of people together. You've got high stress. Everyone wants to do well. Things can happen. You've got a lot of sleeping rooms. You got a lot of stuff going on and things go wrong. And you just have to
Right.
pivot and be ready to make the best of it, learn from it, and then do better the next time. Or now you know what to look for.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Well, this has been great between learning about how you kind of fell into it and it was
Yeah.
your niche, and then diving into the differences between working for a profit and working for an association, and then getting that emotional aspect and learning more about that and how to navigate the burnout and advocate for yourself and all of
Yeah,
those things.
absolutely.
It's
Thank you for
it's
asking me.
been
This was very nice. It was
yes.
fun to just to not be working in my event, but just kind of think back. It
Huh.
made leading up to this, it made me kind of think back over the last 30 years. So it's been fun.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so
Yeah.
glad. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah.
And to all of you that are tuned in, as always, I hope you enjoyed the episode and you continue having an amazing day. And don't forget to be the beautiful people you are, all right? Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for spending time with us on From Small Towns to Global Stages, part of Think Tank Media and Hospitality Nexus, a global human-first platform connecting the hospitality ecosystem in one place, like a career fair that never closes. Watch all episodes at hospitalitynexus.org. Wherever you're starting from, keep going and stay beautiful.